So the average lifespan of a human is about 4,000 weeks. So what you're saying there about stepping out of our comfort zone, some of us listening to this may have used up more weeks than others, some maybe have more to use. So if we have an average of 4,000 weeks, how many of those have we already used up worrying or fearing and actually not stepping out of our comfort zone if we know?
Hello and welcome to Power to Speak, the podcast. And my guest today is an award-winning magician of the Magic Circle, CEO of the Confident Club, and host of the Unlocked podcast, Ricky Locke. Hi,
Hello,
Ricky.
Jackie. Yeah, great to be here. It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's great to have you here. Thank you for your time today, because you are a man that is in demand. You've had a busy year getting married, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
But you've been to quite a few weddings, I would imagine, in your time, being a magician as you are. How did that start for you? Why magic, and what is it about weddings?
That's a really good question. So originally, with the magic, it was born out of I guess, a way to be accepted or a bit of belonging. So a bit of a social cue in social situations like the pub or at work. And I'd had a fascination from it as a little child and as a little boy, but I wasn't the traditional magician that most magicians get a magic set as a kid and they're hooked and they become, that they fulfill their dreams and build like a successful business from it. I had that magic set, but kind of tossed it to one side, moved on with life. And then it was only until I was about probably 15, 16, when we started going out to pubs and stuff, I started to just do magic tricks. I started to get an interest into it. And I thought, oh, hey, Jack, come have a look at this. Craig, come look at this little trick. And it'd be like, oh, wow, cool. And I got hooked on that feeling of just giving that sense of wonder of people going, wow, that's amazing. How on earth did he do that? And it was so infectious that I decided to take it in with me into my career. So before I was obviously a professional magician, I had a career, 15-year career working in retail. And I used to use it as a way in staff rooms to build up my confidence, to approach people, to make people feel great. So create a sense of wonder if they're having a really bad day. And then as I kind of climbed up the ladder, I would use it in team meetings, in workshops and presentations. And then near the end of that career, I would use it in all of my workshops all across the country, just to kind of add a little bit of a magical element. And that's kind of where it kind of started from. With the weddings, it was just, it doesn't sound very glamorous at all, Jackie, but it was just like someone said, hey, we're getting married. Would you like to do some magic? And I went, never done it before. I'll give it a go. Let's do it. And then I went, oh, this is really good. This is a day where most of the time people are really happy to be there. And it's a place where it's quite fun and there's a lot of love there. And it just kind of thought, this would be something quite nice to pursue. And then I just kind of built a business from it and then eventually went full time, left the career. And then, about 70 to 80 weddings a year now. It's,
Wow.
crazy, but
That is
very
crazy.
fun.
Yeah, God, that's almost 2 a week. That's
Yeah.
a hell of a lot of weddings. A hell of a lot of
Yeah.
weddings. I love the idea that you did it throughout your career in retail, because actually it is a fantastic way of breaking down barriers, isn't it, between people?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. There's this real sense of, I guess, this childlike wonder. As kids, we're not taught to be playful or creative. We just do it. We're encouraged to go play, like my daughter is right now, to go play. My wife is with her, I should say. She's not just loose, by the way, in the office, but, they go off and play and learn. And then when we get into adulthood, we start to kind of slow down. And at school, you're told to write in the lines, you conform to life, so that when you kind of leave, a lot of that is sucked out of you. So then to go back to that feeling of that innocence and childlike wonder is quite a lovely thing, to just take people away from the constraints of every day of, let's moan about my mortgage, let's moan about how high the electricity bills are, and actually just for about 20 or 30 seconds experience something that's so wonderful and impossible that is quite often at the weddings, the selling point is that it's memories that are talked about long after the wedding. So yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a great thing to be able to bring to people, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell me, how did you then I mean, this thing about magic and the magic circle and the kind of the secrecy, and I can understand the secrecy. How do you get accepted? How does it
Mm.
work? How do you go from being an amateur magician playing with your magic set to sort of getting in with the big guys?
Yeah, it's a really good question actually, and it's so the Magic Circle in the UK is based in Euston, in London, and it's a wonderful place where the public can actually go. You can go and watch shows where magicians from the Magic Circle will be there, and they can do the shows and do like close up magic, or in the theatre as well. And they've got a museum as well with lots and lots of memorabilia, such as Dynamo's shoes, the shoes that he used to walk on the River Thames. So it's
Mm.
quite cool, and Tommy Cooper, and loads of Sutty memorabilia. But to get to that point, the first thing that I did was to join a local magic society, which was the Peterborough Society of Magicians. And just to start networking with magicians, in there, I met a few magicians who were members of the Magic Circle, or who had previously been members and now were just kind of in their kind of retirement days and just doing it for fun. And just starting to kind of get an idea of practicing and performing in front of people. And then decided to kind of research and find out about it. And the way to become a member of the Magic Circle is that you can apply online. You do an application, like an interview. So you rock up at the Magic Circle in London, do a bit of an interview just to prove that you are not there to reveal secrets or anything like that. You are a real magician that is, really interested in the magical art. And if they deem that you are appropriate, you will then obviously become an apprentice automatically, or you can go in for the full exam. And the exam is an 8 to 12 minute routine in front of 30 to 40 magicians in like a kind of parlor kind of setting, which, Jackie, is the most incredibly difficult thing I've ever done in my life, because every single magician knows every trick you're doing. They know exactly where your hands and where your eyes are going to be, and they know all the patter because they've heard every single joke every single day for the rest of their lives. So it'd be a bit like me and you if we turned up at a big theater full of maybe professional speakers or actors. They're going to know what obviously we're doing. So it's quite difficult, but if you get through it, you get some feedback, and you pass the grade, there's some credibility and some markings that you've got to pass, such as stagecraft, presence, engagement. And then if you pass that, you get like the diploma to say that you are a member of the Magic Circle. You get to wear your badge with pride when you go out and perform. So yeah.
God, I can't imagine anything more intimidating
Yes.
than
Yeah.
doing a 20-minute set to 30 or 40 magicians. That just sounds horrendous, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and one of the front row. So Paul Martin, who's really quite big magician in the magic scene. He was like kind of one of my favorite magicians. So I saw, and I didn't know because they didn't tell you who's going to be the judges on the day. It's basically who turns up, and I was like, oh, okay. So my act was pretty much based on his kind of cheekiness and routine. I thought it was great. So it's nice now. I obviously always say to him every time I see him, like, "Oh my god, yeah, yeah, you're my judge. You judge me."
Yeah,
So it's his reason that I'm here now, I guess. Yeah.
yeah.
So
So where did that kind of what were you like then as a kid? Was it
yeah.
did the magic come because you were interested in the tricks and kind of fooling people or amazing people with the tricks, or did it come from a place of wanting to communicate with people and make a connection?
Yeah, I think, I mean, there's a point, I think, as well of being a magician, that there's this narcissistic, I guess, tendency to this, that people would think that if you're the center of attention, a bit like acting on stage, there is that, we all do it because we love the sound of applause, that kind of, feeds our souls, feeds our egos. And I guess I never really was like that at school. I was very much a case of like an emo kid. Yeah. So as an emo kid, long hair, long curly hair, playing guitar and music and all that kind of thing. Wasn't like one of the footballers who were like the most popular in school. So I was probably like an underdog, I guess. So there was never this goal to be accepted as like the highest, of that chain, really. But I guess there was always this wonder to make people feel good. And I was always a nice kid, nice boy. Always great grades, always good. I never do anything bad at all, Jackie. My school report was brilliant. And I guess there was always this tendency to make people feel good. So I think that kind of linked in with the magic, because probably about 20, 30 years ago, at school 20 years ago, I wouldn't have ever dreamed of being on a stage at all. It was always probably a nice, I guess, dream of that to happen. But if you'd asked me to do it, I wouldn't have done it. And now it's kind of like second nature to us. If you chuck me in a room, like, yeah, I'll go, I'll do the stage. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. But I think it kind of was born from that idea of, let's just be nice. Let's do something that's really wonderful, and to take people, distract them from everyday life
Yeah.
and troubles, to let's just create some wonder right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say, I mean, I don't know you very, very well, but we've met on several occasions through different sort of networks and Yellow Tuxedo and all that. And you just are, in the nicest possible way, a people pleaser, and you
Yeah.
just have this thing that you want people to have the best time. I feel that from you. I get that from you. And this whole, you did a workshop for Yellow Tuxedo
Yeah.
around how can you make the experience as best as you possibly can
Yeah.
for the customer. So
Yeah.
does that come from that kind of people pleasing, wanting to make
Mm.
everybody's journey through life a little bit better?
Yeah, do you know what? I just had a thought here thinking about as a kid. I remember, because I'm a bit of a jack of all trades, master of not many things, I should say. So I can play the piano, I can play the drums, I can play guitar. And I remember as a kid, if like when people would come round, like maybe like family members or something like that, to see my mum downstairs, I'd be playing on my keyboard, and I'd just turn up a little bit louder, probably than usual. And it wasn't to show off. There was, I think, this thought inside me going, "Oh, look at this! Look what I can do." But not as a narcissistic thing. It was like, look, I can do this too, so you can do this too. Come on, let's do it together. And I think that's kind of where that started from. So definitely not as a narcissistic thing. Oh, look at me, look at Fancy Ricky. It was like, look at what I've just learned. Look, I've just learned how to play drums. That's well cool. And then again, that's with that magic thing. It kind of was to, hey, let's show you something really cool. Let's have some fun. But I guess what you were saying there, one of my favorite quotes by Maya Angelou, is that people won't remember what you said. They won't remember what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I think I've had this tendency in my life to always have to leave a legacy wherever I go. So back in my retail days, at every store I worked at in Argos, it was to leave a legacy. What could I do to make it a really fun place that people will remember me? And not again for a narcissistic thing, but it was just like, let's make this such a wonderful experience to work together everywhere I go. So if it's magic, it'll be creating those magical moments. If it's doing a keynote, it's, what can I get the audience to walk away with and think differently, or inspire them to take some action and create a magical moment? And I guess that's probably a bit that little boy Ricky playing the keyboard, turning up loud to, show people, oh, there's amazing things that can happen here. We can do this. And then the Maya Angelou thing has kind of followed me into my retail career, my business, and the customer service journey. And then obviously now the unlocking the best version. It's about, there is this kind of wonderful versions of ourselves that we can unlock, and we don't have to settle for just average. Let's have some fun, while we're here. Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, I think I think it's written on my board in front of me. I think it's from Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club, which is one of the saddest things in life, is to get to the end and look back and regret knowing that you could have been done and had so much more. And I think that's just really important, isn't it? Why wait to the end and look back and go, I wish I could have done that.
No,
So let's just create magic moments now. Yeah.
I absolutely agree. That quote from Maya Angelou, I use all of the time myself, because I think it's so important, especially obviously with what we do, is just, when you're trying to explain to people that, yes, you have everything you need, just stand up and speak, let people hear what it is that you say, and don't worry about what you're saying, but think about the audience and how they are going to leave the room. How are you going to make them feel?
Yeah.
And I love that. She was an amazing woman. But
Yeah.
before we touch on, to take it forward, because before we leave the childhood thing, because I asked you for some fun things, and I just need to ask you this because it's now playing on my mind. The countries that begin with P,
Yes. Yeah.
was that a phobia, or, I mean, just explain
Yeah.
a little bit about that.
Yeah. So to all the listeners and people watching, I used to have this huge belief that any places or maybe activities beginning with P, I would have incredibly bad luck. And this is still quite a recent thing, but Jackie, I don't believe in it now, because I now understand that they were just outcomes, right? So to the listeners out there, beliefs are just lies. So if you was to write the word belief down, BELIEF, there is a word inside of that word, which is lie. And beliefs are just lies that we tell ourselves, but it's our choice to decide if they're true or not. Quite often or not, we believe them to be true, and it's probably false. It's just because we haven't updated our references. So to give you an idea, um, I went to Pisa. Pisa, beautiful place, and lovely time away with my then fiance, who's now wife. And unfortunately, Ryanair cancelled the flight out of no reason particular. So it meant that we were delayed flight, which meant I didn't get home till about the next day. We had to stay up into another hotel. And I just got back in time about 4 or 5 hours before a wedding. The next place I went to was Peru. We had a wonderful opportunity to climb Machu Picchu. Did 3 or 4 days in the Peruvian jungle and climbed up to one of the wonders of the world. Beautiful, beautiful, lovely holiday again. And to get there, Jackie, there's 3 planes that you need to get from the UK to get to South America. We took off on the first flight. The second flight, as soon as we had landed, had already gone. Some mishap in communication for whatever reason. When me and my wife landed, it's only our luggage going on this connecting flight kind of conveyor belt. And there's this very shady man who says, "You need to follow me, and you've missed your flight." I went, "Okay, fair enough." I thought, he must work for the airline. He took us outside. We go outside, outside the airport. We're thinking, where's he taking us? Go over the bridge, over the motorway. He takes us to this office, which is a bit of a shady office. Very difficult. They don't speak a great deal of English. And in a long story short, quite naive, and we were quite young. We had to pay £3,000 to get home, and all we were given was a piece of paper. And it was a real airline ticket. Obviously, we got it back through insurance, but we were quite young and naive. We didn't know what to do. So most people say, "Oh, that's quite bad, Ricky. It's quite a bad experience." Portugal, my friend's lovely wedding, beautiful wedding in Portugal, flew out there pre-COVID. And on the wedding day, a hurricane ripped up the roof of the venue while we're all partying inside. So everything had to get locked down. The whole island got destroyed, which meant that our flight home got cancelled. So we decided to use our initiative this time, and 2 friends who went out with us traveled to the other side of Portugal, got a hire car, thought we'd fly from the other side of the island because it'd be safer. There was less debris there, and it was all booked, and we thought, great. Got about an hour and a half before the actual flight takes off, and then we thought we'll go to a museum. We go to the museum, Jackie. We come back, and our hire car, the rear windows were smashed in, and my 2 friends' luggage was both stolen. This is why my friends do not travel with me on holiday anymore. I went to Mexico. Mexico doesn't obviously have a P word, but about 3 days into Mexico, I got appendicitis. I had to have my appendix removed in Mexico. There's no P, obviously, in Mexico, but there's 2 Ps in appendicitis, so it's double the strength for that one. Anyway, most people would think, bloody hell, Ricky, you have incredibly, incredibly bad luck when you go abroad. No, I don't believe that, because there's no such thing as failure. There are only outcomes. Yes, that was like 3 or 4 really, really bad outcomes. But what most people would do is they tend to have the belief that, oh my God, I'm never, ever going abroad again because I have bad luck. There were just 4 coincidentally really bad times, all beginning with P. Every other holiday has been absolutely fine. But funny story to wrap it up. Obviously, I got married about 8 or 9 weeks ago now, and we went on our honeymoon to Mauritius, so no P. I'm very fortunate to go there. But 2 days in, Jackie, me and my wife decided to go paddle boarding. I fell off the paddleboard, lost my prescriptive sunglasses. I couldn't see anything. And then as I fell off, the paddleboard is tied to my ankle. The board swings towards my face, and the fin of the paddleboard slices my ear. And I got rushed to A&E in Mauritius. Okay, so there you go. So there you go. That's why the P word is probably known as a bad luck. But hey, you know what? It's just a belief. It's not true. So for anyone out there who does have like beliefs that they're not confident or they're never good enough, just check your references and see if it's true or not. Most often, it's probably not
Yes.
true. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I thought when I read that earlier that it was something that started in childhood. I thought it sort of went way back, but it sounds as if it's
Still
something that
going.
sort of
Yeah.
happened
Still going. Yeah.
relatively recently. Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe it's not the P word, it's just you.
It could just well be me. Yeah. Maybe I've had maybe someone put a curse on me when I was a little boy or something. Like, he's playing that bloody keyboard too loud, and he just hex me or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knows?
But I mean, it kind of, the whole thing about beliefs, I know from your involvement in the Confident Club,
Yeah.
but it's presentation, it's not presentation training,
Yeah.
but it's presentation belief.
Yeah, so that's right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it's presentation mastery workshops that we run, but it's something much more than just presentation skills. It's all about beliefs. We use a little bit of NLP in there, and we help people become more confident in life. most of the time people walk away from our presentation workshop using all of those skills that we teach them in their life as well, not just at work. So it's something that's so empowering. And I got to experience it a couple of years ago myself by attending. And even me as a performer and a presenter who's used to presenting, even I walked away with going, oh my God, um, I didn't know that, and how empowered I felt to then use those skills in everyday life, such as that presupposition of there's no such thing as failure, there's only outcomes. So it's a really, really wonderful thing. And we go into loads of different companies at director levels. We do open days for the public to join as well. So earlier on this year, we had two wonderful people. We had Dwayne Chambers, Sebastian Fucom. They came on to come join us as well. And we run it twice a year. So the next available dates are in April next year in London, where people can come. And if they have that belief that they are terrible presenters or they're really bad at presenting, then obviously they can come along and we can show them that actually it's probably not true. And actually they are probably more better than they think they are.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like everything that you do there is totally aligned with the way that I speak to people, because I came into the sort of presentation world from an acting background, talking to people about motivation and what motivates a character, and everything around that is about the belief system. So it's about believing that you're that person rather than playing that person. And actually it's very similar when you're dealing with the public and getting them to understand that actually they are absolutely capable of being themselves. They don't have to play at being themselves. They can just be themselves.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny, Jackie. It's a really good point there. I was thinking about the Man on the Moon film with Jim Carrey, and
Yeah.
he method acts like even backstage, which is brilliant. But there's a funny thing there you mentioned about the belief thing, because we use this as an example in the Compton Club that babies, when they're born, they are born with just two fears: the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling over. That's it. So it means everything else is learned, which means you can unlearn it. So in those situations of training people, we know that actually, do you know what? That's just a conditioned response that you've built that you can unlearn. We can
Yeah.
show you how to do that. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I came into it, I suppose, as an actor trainer, and working with people on that sort of thing, on their sort of voices, the physicality of how they speak, organs of articulation, the breath work, all of those things. And actually now through the coaching process, I'm beginning to realize that a lot of what I do is around that kind of basic mindset. And once people kind of
yeah,
take ownership of their stories even, and the confidence just you
yeah,
can see the transformation. It's incredible. And then the voice just falls into place. And then I don't have
yeah,
to worry about, how they're breathing, how they're speaking, the authenticity and all of that stuff, because it all comes quite naturally once they've got that kind of basic belief system
yeah,
sorted out.
yeah, definitely. Yeah,
So I would like to know that, because we haven't kind of touched on how you went from magician to, let me just show you here, because this is you. For those that are listening, this is a picture of the Confident Club website with Ricky center stage with, is that Steve McDermott
yeah. Steve McDermott and Curly
and,
Uppington. Yeah.
and Curly Uppington on either side. And how did your journey to this space with them happen?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And it was a very exciting journey back in lockdown where I obviously formed a podcast like yourself. And when you look around for guests, you think, oh, who'd be really exciting? And one of my favorite videos and speakers was Steve McDermott. And I used to use Steve's work in a lot of my customer experience workshops back in Argos. So before I went full time with the magic business. And he has a great video on YouTube called The 4 Minute Rule, which is all about first impressions. And it's up to about 7 to 17 seconds to create a first impression. And then it's tend to be up to 4 minutes to recover if it's a really bad first impression. So we used to use it as an example for customer service when you first greet and welcome people, which is a great example as well for on stage or even on presentations. What's that first impression look like? Rather than just turning up and going, hello, welcome to my video. What can you do to hook the audience in? So I used to use that a lot. And I thought, you know what? He's really great. I'm going to ask him to come on to the podcast. I had his book. He's got like a book, which was the second edition. And he just, I sent him a voice note and he replied back and said, love to be on your podcast. Let me know your address. I've actually got a third edition of the book coming out. I'll send you a new copy. I went, hey, brilliant. So we came on. We got on really well, and I often say this to him. I'm not sure if he agrees now, but if you put a picture of me and Steve next to each other, I think that's probably how I'm going to look like in 30 years' time. He's got that kind of silvery hair now, the big black rim glasses like me. And we just got on really well. And then he reached out to me a couple of months after. I kept in touch with him, and he says, I've just got this really cool feeling about you. I think there'd be something there in the future. How would you like to come and experience the presentation mastery workshop? And then maybe we bring you in as a coach and go from there. And that's kind of just how it happened, just from the podcast, by reaching out to someone and say, I think you're really awesome. Would you like to come on? And it's blew into this beautiful, relationship now, where we'll go around probably monthly, go into companies like Coca-Cola, Feature Space, Audible, just to kind of run our workshops. And just born from a conversation, a voice note on LinkedIn, to something so beautiful now. So,
Wow.
and like you said earlier on, Jackie, the values there completely align with everything that I was doing at the time to what they do as well. So it was a nice natural fit. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it just shows you that, you need to make these steps to not be afraid. And this is, I, in lockdown, have started the podcast like you did, have sort of what's the word, pivoted, for want
Yeah.
of a better word, have diversified maybe in my sort of career, from teaching actors to actually, across to working with business people, entrepreneurs, authors, whoever's, need to present, because I think it's incredibly beneficial to bring that to everyday life. It's just to make sure that people are as confident as they possibly can be. But a lot of it is stepping outside of your comfort zone, which, there's lots of cases over the last 2-3 years that if I hadn't have actually put my finger on a button and entered a breakout room, if I hadn't have stepped out and gone, oh my God, what am I doing? There was an after show that I thought, oh, do they want me there? No, click the bottom button. What's the worst that can happen? And I met some amazing people. And so I think it's really great to let people know and let people see that actually it doesn't have to, you're not going to die. You're not going to
Yeah.
die. It's just step outside of your comfort zone. That's where the magic happens. That's where the transformation happens, is really on the edge of your comfort zone.
I totally agree. Yeah. And that kind of presupposition, saying earlier on that, there's no such thing as failure or any outcomes, which means that you either succeed or you learn. There's no such thing as failure. And that's just a belief that I've adopted into my life for so many years, that I'm not afraid to do something that what some people might say is failure. So to give an example, I relaunched my podcast this year, made a huge campaign publicly, committed, made myself accountable, told the world I'm making my podcast, relaunching it, and it's going to go to top 10 of the UK podcast charts, because I believe it's so worth it. Did this huge campaign. It got to 67 in the UK charts, which was fantastic, amazing, right? To some people, they'd be like, oh, well, you failed, Ricky, because you didn't do it. And I was like, no. How cool is that? How fascinating that it was just an outcome. It wasn't a failure. It was just an outcome. I got to 67. How cool is that? Out the whole UK. The other learning was that it actually jumped into a second chart, which I wasn't expecting, which was the education chart. And it got to 150. And at number one of the education chart in the UK is Jordan B. Peterson's podcast, who's quite a prolific speaker, and I was like, wow, fantastic. I'm in the same kind of ranks as those, So there was actually something quite interesting about it. And it was just the way of looking at it. But you're absolutely right. There's this last thing on that one, which is, I can't remember, unfortunately, the author of the book. Have you heard about the 4,000 weeks model?
No, I don't think so.
So the average lifespan of a human is about 4,000 weeks. So what you're saying there about stepping out of our comfort zone, some of us listening to this may have used up more weeks than others. Some maybe have more to use. So if we have an average of 4,000 weeks, how many of those have we already used up worrying or fearing and actually not stepping out of our comfort zone? If we know that on average we only have 4,000 weeks, how many weeks have we actually got left? So why not just do something different today? Step out your comfort zone, because there's no such thing as failure. It's just an outcome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it brings me to the power of yes,
Yeah.
which I've literally I did my third live yesterday. So, and you very kindly are going to be a guest. I'm not sure when this will come out, but you may well have been on the live before this actually airs. But that for me was stepping outside my comfort zone, is to actually just press the button rather than press record when I do these podcasts, and I have that kind of cushion of being able to edit and, do what I need with the outcome. To go live, it's like, oh, what could possibly go wrong? And in fact,
Yeah.
yesterday, my guest didn't got the timing wrong, so I spent the first 12 minutes talking to myself, which was fun. But yeah, what an experience to actually do that. But the power of yes takes me back to my first guest, Tom Morris, who's a philosopher, American public philosopher, author of 30 books, an amazing man. But it's if he hadn't have said yes, if he doesn't say yes now, I mean, he still does it now, and I think it's something that we should all learn from, is just don't be afraid to say yes. I mean, if you hadn't have said yes to Steve McDermott, because you're not just a coach now at Confident Club, are you?
No, that's right. Yeah, I'm the CEO. Yeah.
I mean,
So
how crazy is that?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? What's the worst that could happen if someone, if he'd have said no? Cool, it's just an outcome. I probably would have tried again in a different way and learned from that and gone, okay, did that strategy work? Maybe I should try a different strategy of getting him on the podcast. Is there a speaker he knows that I might be able to get on, and then they recommend me? So yeah, no, absolutely, just say yes to it, and who cares what happens? Because I think a lot of this, a lot of people worry about what people might think of them. So that live example of you, oh my God, I've got to do something different. A lot of the time people worry about themselves, but quite often other people aren't thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. So I think that's the thing we fear quite a lot. I wonder what people are going to say. Yeah, chances are they're probably not thinking about you at all, really. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have to say, in the lives so far that I've done, I've only had amazingly supportive friends, network, people that know me. So actually, and that's what's happened all the way along. Everything that I've tried, everything that I've given a go, stepped outside my comfort zone, I've not fallen on my face.
Yeah.
It's amazing how people will take you and run with it. They'll be
Yeah.
supportive, and they're on your side, and that's something else that I like to get across to people, is that actually your audience want you to succeed.
Yeah,
There's nothing
absolutely. Yeah.
worse, and this is what I learned from teaching, when I was teaching acting, is that actually the audience, and when I was performing as well, is that the audience don't want you to fail. There's no way an audience want to come in and you must get this when you're
Mm,
on stage keynoting or as a
yeah.
magician, is that if you go wrong, the audience feel awkward, and they don't want
Yeah.
to feel awkward. So
Yeah.
they're there to kind of say, no, you can do it, Ricky, you can do it, let's keep going, and because they don't want you to fail, because it make them feel bad.
Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. And I mean, look at your podcast now, right? StreamYard, and it's wonderful. You got the wonderful graphics. This was probably just a pipe dream or an idea. So look at where you've come to now, and that was just by doing something, and then the rest of it unfolds. Yeah.
Yeah. So what tips have you got then that you can give maybe to listeners out there that are wanting to step on the stage? We will talk about this. So, this is sort of for the speaking live. We'll save some nuggets for that. But
Yeah.
are there any sort of any advice you can give to people about stepping onto a stage and how to sort of build their confidence around that?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a great thing which is what they call free to fee, which is about just going out there, offering your services to people for probably no payment at all, but it's a leverage tool for you to, hey, would it be okay? I'm happy to come deliver my talk at your event. I want to try this new thing I'm doing. You don't have to pay me, but I might bring a videographer, or I might bring someone to just film it on their iPhone at the back. And if you enjoy it, would you give me a testimonial? And then again, there's a little bit of evidence there that you can say, hey, someone has listened to me, and you can kind of build it up from there. That's pretty much what I did with magic. Started out by performing for people, do the odd free things. And I think sometimes you can split the audience here, where some people go, oh, no, you shouldn't be offering your services for free. But if you're wanting to start something, then it doesn't matter. Free to fee is great because you get to learn, you get to try stuff, see what works, and because you're videoing it as well, it's one of the what we call the Jedi mantras. What we use in the Confident Club is always, Jedi masters, so professional speakers. We video what we do so we can see how we feel, what we look like, what we're saying on stage. Is it making an impact? What could we learn from that and make it more impactful? So free to fee is a really great thing to do. So contact somewhere like it could be a WI, it could be a round table, and just say, hey, look, I'd love to come deliver my talk on this. And would it be okay if I just come and bring a videographer, or I bring a cameraman, or even if I just have my, my wife at the back of the room with a tripod and just video it? Because most clubs are looking for events all the time and looking for people to come do stuff. And if you mention that it's free, brilliant. They're not going to complain at that. Obviously, they'll probably want to see something, to see what you like, or probably meet you first, because they obviously don't want to make you look crap or anything like that. But I think that's a great thing to do. Just do some free to fee things. Contact people. Contact your local networking groups and say, can I have 10 minutes at the end of the next networking session just to deliver my 10 minutes of my 40-minute keynote? No one's going to say no to that, because you're offering something of value to people. So I think that's a really good thing to do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. That's what I do, and I've sort of done that in Zoom rooms on for sort of from 10 minutes to 20 minutes. That's kind of, if you can come up with something that you can present that fits into a nice sort of little networking learning session, that seems to be a great place to sort of get started. And plus, if you're in a business network, you get people talking to you. But certainly for myself, because I come from an acting background rather than a speaker background, I've not very often been on a stage giving a keynote. I've not done a talk in person. And so that's definitely my plan, is to do those free talks for anybody that will listen, just to get that stage experience in that way.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
Because I'm used to being on a stage as somebody else, not as myself. So that's
of course.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
So I know, because I've done some research. In fact, I looked at your YouTube channel, and there's, in your intro there, there's talk about a TEDx talk or a TED talk. So is this in the planning?
Yes, it is. Yeah. So I announced that earlier on this year as one of my big, as David Heiner says, huge, unbelievably big goals. And it's still in the pipeline. So I dropped it in the summer. And the reason being was that I started to look at it and refine it and think, I don't have a big enough reason why to do it. I think at the time it was probably thinking, well, that looked pretty cool on my LinkedIn profile. And I really want to do one because I believe that I have value to offer to people. And one of the biggest questions that you're always asking, Ted, is what makes you different to everyone else? And during that time, I just think, you know what? I don't really have a big enough reason why. But since that, I delivered this talk at the NHS recently, and there's so anyone who comes follow me on LinkedIn, you'll see a little preview of this coming out soon. And I had this great idea. So I'm going to answer this question, Jackie. I'm going to go round it to come back to it. I had this great idea. So using a bit of my story about, leaving my career to go full time in Argos 1 week before the lockdown, and lost everything. And I talked about, the P word and just things going wrong in my life for some reason. And I had this great kind of idea of using this road closed sign. And most of the time when people are driving or commuting, if you see a road closed sign, it pretty much annoys people really bad, because most people think, oh my God, I'm now going to be late for work. I'm going to be late to my destination. And I think that there's something really magical about the unknown and the uncertainty of where that might take you. So I'm imagining one day, maybe in a book, if I write it, like this big colorful image, if you imagine this, Jackie, of people, in the cars, like a cartoon, people, effing and blinding out the cars because they're late, huge traffic jams. And then there's this little car with me in it, just smiling, happy, singing, dancing in the car, because I'm experiencing something wonderful. And then the reason that it links to me is because of the Confident Club journey, the wonderful things that have happened over the last 2 years because of a huge road closed sign like COVID, right? So I decided for that NHS talk, one of the key things, the most important thing of any presentation is the start and the end. So big thing to grab the audience. I thought, I'm going to grab a road closed sign. So I can't say on air, just in case, who knows who might be listening, but I found a road closed sign, Jackie, and I brought it for the talk. So I literally run on stage and plonk it on the stage and then say, right, who here, recognizes this? And who here feels extremely happy when they see this? Of course, no hands go up. And I said, who here feels really annoyed when they see this? And everyone puts their hand up. And it was the idea to sell this idea that actually the next time that you see this, maybe there's something magical could happen. But what was so lovely about it, and the reason that this links with TED, is at the end of the talk, this has never happened before, but this woman came out from the audience. She came up to me and she hugged me and she had tears in her eyes. I said, "Are you okay?" And she said, and it formed such a massive anchor on the side of the stage that it was a huge sign. And she went, that happened to me in 2020. I'd lost everything. I lost my career. And now she's now working in NHS and now doing some magical, wonderful things. And she said, but I just need to tell you how much that really resonated with my life. So thank you for reminding me like where I am now. And I'm very grateful for that. So thank you. And I said, oh, give me a hug. And she was crying. It was beautiful. And I thought, oh my God, wow. And I thought, that's never happened before. How fascinating. And now that I think the form the basis of what the TED Talk will be, of the idea that actually maybe there's something powerful about this, that actually things going wrong is actually a good thing, not a bad thing. Because most of the time, most people just think that's going to be a really bad thing. But actually, can't we just enjoy the journey? And life is life is adventure. It's not just about the destination. So in answer to your question, next year I think is where it's going to be. I have just took a stage and I've got Chris Lovett. He came onto my podcast to share his adventure on how he applied, how he practiced, and how he delivered his first TEDx in Holt, London. He did that earlier on this year. So he's just come on, which that will be out about now for anybody listening. And that's just to explain how he did it and how he applied. So now we've got that kind of idea and a bit of references there. Now it's like, right, okay, well, let's go do the application. So
yeah, brilliant. Well, I look forward to that. And I think it is those stories. I mean, I literally yesterday said to a friend of mine that's just done a TEDx up in Northwich, I think.
Was that Trisha Lewis?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen her TED. Yeah.
So I said to her yesterday, nominate me. Do it, go for it. I said, if because I know it takes a little while.
Yeah.
And there's ideas mulling around, but it's those stories, which is what I always come back to. It's not about finding your stories that are going to make people feel sorry for you or go, oh, poor you, look at what you've been through and aren't you amazing to have done this. But it's really finding those stories that resonate, that really validate somebody else, what somebody else has been through. So somebody in the audience, like that woman that came up to you, you really touched her with that story because you gave her permission to be proud of herself.
Yeah,
and I think
definitely.
that's where that emotion comes from. And back to Maya, and that's how you made her feel, and that's powerful. That's really powerful.
Yeah, definitely.
So good luck with that.
Thank you. Watch this space. Yeah.
So what is, apart from that, what is coming up for you? What's next? Because obviously you're continuing with the wedding. So I just have a look there, because that's a lovely photograph of obviously you in situ in a wedding, doing this stuff. So is that still on the agenda, or is
yes? Yeah. So currently for next year, there's about 50 weddings in the diary already. So quite a busy season because of still some postponements. People just scrapped 2021 and 2022 because of COVID. So that's quite a busy year. Quite seasonal, obviously. Peak wedding season is like April to September, but you get weddings every day of the year. So continue with the Confident Club. So we'll be working with Kelly and Steve to bring in more clients. Obviously running open days as well, where people will be coming in and experiencing the 2 days presentation mastery workshop. And who knows, maybe more products and maybe more workshops maybe in the Confident Club. So we'll see what happens. But the way it's going to continue at the minute is to continue doing what we love doing. We have this funny thing, which is that we only like working with people that we really like. So that's good. So we make sure our values match first. And who knows? Maybe we'll see. There's magic in the uncertainty. So who knows?
And I would imagine that the podcast will reach the top 10 very soon. So how long have you been going with your podcast?
Yeah, podcast 2 years now. So it's in the top 3% of the world, which sounds pretty cool, but that's out of like 2.5 million podcasts. But that's still cool. I'm still taking that. That's pretty cool, nice thing. And it gets regular gets regular interest from people all over the world. So I get messages from people in America. I had a guest on, Michelle Lloyd, who started this wonderful community in the UK for artists to share their space and to share how to make money from their art. So obviously she came on, I went on hers, and then because there's a lot of people in America, I've been getting this lovely interest from America, which is lovely. So going to continue that, still forming the community, still getting great guests on like Jackie Goddard, who came onto
Yes.
my podcast. I heard she's all right. She's a pretty good guest. Yeah, and just continue to get some great guests in line with the values of the podcast and use that as well, there you go. Here's maybe an exclusive, Jackie. I think, and probably like yourself here, the podcast for me will form like a book, which forms speaking gigs, because all of these different episodes that we have, there's gold nuggets in every single episode that I think can help people unlock the best version of themselves. So I think that's probably where that's going to go. So yeah,
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that
thank
sounds
you.
great. I did put it together, which I loved doing actually, and I think I might do some more of them. It was only because I had a bit of a gap, but I put together a best of. And this particular one was marketing, I think, and it was just lovely to go back and listen to what people had to say and take out those little nuggets and then kind of put them all together. And it just sort of really flowed quite nicely. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
great to pull out those little things. Yeah.
brilliant.
I was going to ask you then. Oh, what was I was going to move on to something seamlessly then, and it's just completely gone.
Well,
I
Jackie,
think
may
it.
I ask you a question then? Maybe I can throw you off even more here.
Oh, go on then.
What's in store for you and the Power to Speak podcast?
Well, funny you should say that. I'm loving this. I'm loving the lives. So I think there may be a bit of a transition because the podcast I get to record and I talk to people about what they do and how they got to where they got, how they got there. And that's great. But I'm loving speaking to speakers, which is obviously the reason that you're coming on. The reason I had Trisha on is to talk to people that have had the experience of actually being on a stage and how they do what they do when they're there, how they prepare, what stories they tell. But also, I love the interaction to actually have an audience that I can grab questions. We can do that sort of Q&A. So that might transition from the recorded podcast, which I've got recordings up into the new year, so they will keep going for a while. And obviously, every now and again, if I get somebody fantastic that I want to talk to for an hour or whatever, it will continue. But yes,
Brilliant.
thank you for that question. Moving
Yeah.
swiftly on, I was going to ask you about online. That's what it was. I wanted to ask you that during lockdown, obviously, like me, all that outside work in venues stopped. You took magic online. How did that work?
Yeah, very frustratingly at first, yeah. But no, it was great. It was a wonderful journey, that. Um, there just seemed to be this point originally, it started off by cheering everybody up. So I did some big PR in the local newspapers to say, "I'm gonna do this magic show online." The first one was free, just to kind of cheer up the nation because we were all pissed off and all that sort of thing. So I just basically got people to join on Zoom, realized that basically there's like a kind of 2D, kind of style that, there's not things that I could do with many angles with magic. So come on. And I tried it with like a split camera. So I'd have like a close-up camera down here, main camera here, so I could switch between, and just trialed it. And it got some great interest because no one else, couldn't do anything else, could we really? And then it just blew up in 2020 because everybody wanted Christmas parties, and we weren't meeting, so everybody was still at home. So this market just grew out of nowhere, and people were booking with good money as well. For me, just standing in my downstairs like dining room, with the suit on the top half and probably pajama shorts, on the bottom,
Yeah.
but no one knows. Who knows? That's the illusion. But it was great, and it just was. It was very challenging because of the technical aspect, because you needed high speed processors just to kind of deal with all the text switching. So my old laptop like eventually just kind of blew up in the end because it just couldn't handle it. So I had to upgrade to get like a Mac just to deal with all the speed processing and the high speed camera and that. But it was great. I loved it. It's kind of died down now because obviously we're not really, we're doing things in real life, but there are still hybrid events where people are still booking. But it was fantastic. Yeah, lovely journey. I really enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
very proud that um, there was a point, Jackie, where I was about to go stock shells in Waitrose because I'd had it. I was like, everyone was refunding, everyone was canceling their wedding, but thankfully I just started pushing it, and then it just grew, and thankfully that kind of saved me through 2020 and 2021. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Ah,
lovely, very fun. Yeah, and
well,
also
again,
yeah. Oh, sorry.
w no, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, one of the greatest things was the outreach that I couldn't do previously. So, someone got me for a private birthday party, and they said our son's going to come on from Australia, so can we do it at midnight? I was like, yeah, great. And then one company, they wanted me to do something for South America. Yeah, sure, great. And I would never have done that before without that. So it was lovely. Yeah, very challenging, very fun, but very magical as well.
Yeah. I mean, I did a similar thing with, improv classes online, which I didn't think I could ever do, online, because obviously you need to be in person, or so you think, the same with magic, that you think you're
Yeah,
gonna have to sort of be there, um, otherwise it's not gonna work. But yeah, it worked online. It was challenging, but like you, I had people from all over the world. I had,
yeah,
I in one group, I had people from Canada, from North America, from France, all in the same space, which I'd never done before. And
yeah,
certainly with what I do now, it's gone global, which I think, like you were saying, for lots of people, the lockdown was a complete reset and a complete kind of what how we can work differently.
yeah, yeah. Whole belief thing again, isn't it? That same for me. Me and magicians were like, how am I going to create rounds of applauses and amazement and audience engagement reactions? It worked, but originally it was
Yeah.
just unlocking that belief and going, do you know what? This isn't true. We can make this happen, and it
Yes.
works. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just before we go, we'll wrap up here, but I just wanted to ask you about the hypnosis side of what you do, because that's something you've done. I'd noticed that you'd
yeah,
managed to hypnotize a lady into being able to play the violin for the Royal Symphony Orchestra. How does that
yes,
work? How does I don't even
yeah,
understand how that works, because
yeah.
that's not just magic, that's our minds, isn't it?
It's probably the closest thing to real magic, I think, is what I can experience. But so hypnosis is something that we all experience every single day. So Jackie, am I aware that you drive? You drive?
Yes.
Great. So you will experience some hypnosis at some point driving. So you might be on the motorway. You might be thinking slip road's coming up, and then you start thinking about, oh, what am I going to do for dinner tonight? And then you end up just going past the slip road and you go, oh my God, I forgot the slip road. But the thing is, at that point, your brain is not saying, left foot down, indicator left with the left finger, gear stick forward. It just happens kind of unconsciously, right? So basically, what hypnosis is we are tapping into the unconscious part of your brain. So, like driving, great example, you can quite often drive, probably have a conversation on the phone, eat, drink, and still drive. And it's basically like that. We're just going to tap into that unconscious part of the brain that just happens conditionally, and then we kind of confuse people with the pattern. So the idea with the lady that I did for the Royal Symphony Orchestra was to get her into a state of relaxation, to then completely give her permission to try something fun, and then disturb that pattern and interrupt it, and then getting her brain to do something that is quite unusual. Now, most of the time with hypnosis, you can't make someone do something that they don't want to do. So that lady was clearly okay with that as a kind of a conditioned response. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing. But we all experience it. Like great example here. Like Steve says this to me a lot. If you used to think of right now, Jackie, your left toe right now, and the feeling of it, whether it's in your socks or in your shoes, where was that before? You wasn't thinking about that. It was just up there in your unconscious brain. And that's the same thing. It's just tapping into those parts that we don't really kind of think about. So yeah, very unusually fun and spooky. The biggest and my favorite thing I've ever done was to make someone believe that I was invisible, which
Oh.
rationally and logically you would think Ricky is not invisible, but his brain believed it. And yeah, so I would pick objects up and hover him like that, and he could get really, really worked up about it, really scared. And then obviously I'd snap my fingers and say I'm back, and he'd go, "Oh my God," or I'd snap my fingers and say my head is now just a floating head. And it's very scary and spooky. Yeah.
It is, isn't it? 'Cause I have been hypnotized before
Oh, bro, yeah.
for smoking back in the day and for,
Yeah.
different things. But you're quite aware,
Yeah.
even under hypnosis, what's going on.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's really strange that you can kind of get to that point where you believe that that person is invisible.
Yeah, well, it's like when you have a dream. So if you've ever had like a real vivid dream and you wake up and think, "Oh my God, was I really naked in the bank? Oh my God, did I?" And you go, "Oh no, no, it wasn't real." But your brain can believe that. So from those dreams, and it's just tapping into that. Yeah.
Yeah, strange, very strange.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I'm gonna let you go. So quickly while you're here, this is your website address, so rickylocke.co.uk, where we can find out all about the magician side of what you do.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And then very quickly, the Confident Club, which is there, confidentclub.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So check out for our open days. There's going to be one in April 2023 and October 2023 as well.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I've really enjoyed our conversation.
Thanks, Jackie. Thanks for having me on. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Speak to you soon.
Thank you.